I'm about to show you the most Googled hair extension method, tape-in hair extensions. Hi, my name is Sam. I'm a hair extension specialist in Los Angeles, and I've been doing hair extensions for over 13 years and teaching stylists across the globe how to install hair extensions the correct way. I am going to break it down for you step by step how to install a full head of tape-in hair extensions. We're going to go over placement. I'm going to show you a few different ways that you can install the tape-ins, whether it's a single-sided, a double-sided, and everything in between. If you are a stylist and you're not offering this method, definitely watch this video because you're going to want to install them after this. They're quick, they're easy, and they're super efficient. I love how flat they lay. You have that nice up-down movement, and there's so many pros to this method. Watch this video also if you are interested in getting tape-in extensions, because I'm going to show you why this method might work for you and also why it might not. So without further ado, let's get into this tape-in install. These are my tape-in hair extensions, and I have a total of 2 packs, which equates to 100 grams. Depending on what brand you use is going to depend on how many grams you get per pack. But just for reference, for a full head, a lot of the time I'm doing anywhere between 100 to 150 grams. Of course, there are going to be circumstances where I'm using more or less, but on average, 100, 150. And with the brand that I use, that is going to be 2 to 3 packs for a full head. Okay, let's dive straight into this install. So first things first, sectioning. I'm just going to section off my mannequin head like this, almost like you're doing a haircut. So just behind the back of the ear, that will be my first section, and then I'm going to just do the same thing on this side. I just like to section everything off so that the hair that I don't need at that moment in time is not getting in my way. And again, just sectioning behind the ear, exactly like how you would do a haircut if you're a hairdresser. Let's now section off for our first row. So bearing in mind my mannequin head, her nape is really low. Typically on most people it's going to be an inch above the nape, and a lot of the time that sits about halfway across the ear, sometimes a little bit lower down, but it will always be an inch above from the nape. Remember, some people have really thick hair here, especially if it's like blunt, so you might even have to work lower into that nape area. If I'm using more than 100, maybe even 150 grams, that's when I'm working really low into the nape, and a lot of the time you're doing that because you need that coverage. However, for the sake of today, we're just doing a standard install, so for most people 1 inch above the nape, it's going to be perfect. So I'm just going to clean up that section, and then I'll section it up and out the way. I'm always trying to make my sections as clean as possible, because then when you do the install, eliminates any of those crosshairs. Crosshairs are your nemesis, regardless of what method we're installing. Crosshairs are not what you want. We were just talking off camera, and I'm going to try and work as slow as possible. I think the amazing thing about tapes is they're so easy to pick up. A lot of the questions that I get regarding it is more so about placement. So as well as technical, I do want to go over that placement with you guys, because I know that's what a lot of people struggle with. But I promise you, once you get the tapes down, you're going to want to use them all the time because it's so quick. Starting with our first tape sandwich, I'm just going to peel off that backing, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways to install it. So at the nape, I'm going to do 2 tape sandwiches, and I'm going to show you my preferred way, which is top first, and I'll also show you another way, which is bottom first. Starting with my preferred way, the top first, I'm going to make sure I'm working an inch away from here. Remember, always using an inch away from the hairline, because we always want those tapes to be discreet. So now making sure I'm holding my section taut. This is a really useful method if you have a client with a lot of crosshairs. You're going to find doing it top first is going to be a lot easier because you can control those crosshairs, you can control those flyaways. Inch away, and I'm going to drop my tape down a little bit, because remember, we want wiggle room within that install. We never want that tape to sit on that part line, otherwise you will have tension. The finer the hair, the more you will need to drop down, because you're going to need more hair within that tape. Remember, finer hair, the hair is spread out more, rather than thicker hair, the hair is more compact. So dropping down, less for thick hair, more for that finer hair. Now that I'm happy with that, can you see I am pinching the end of my tape, not the natural hair, and I'm just going to lift that up like so. All of the hair that needs to be in the section will then come with it, and then all I'm going to do now is just lip that out the way. And if you want, you can flip it up like that, and if you feel like you need it, especially when working with shorter extensions, you can even just loosely put a little clip there just to keep it all in place. I'm gonna just pinch my tape like this, just with my nail. You don't want to put your finger on it too much, otherwise you're going to affect the effectiveness of that adhesive. So just with my nail, I'm pinching it like that, and then I'm just going to flip it over, and then can you see I'm dropping it down to where I want it, and I'm just lining up with that tape underneath. So lining it up, and then I'm not going to press anything now. I'm going to drop it down first, and then I can press that into place. If you want an extra step for security, these pliers are Hair Made Easy. Love them. And then you can just go in and just make sure that you're pinching that tape. I love tapes. You get that really nice flexible up down movement, and in a lot of cases they lie a lot flatter than even a weft. Okay, now I'm going to show you the next way. So now that we've got that, remember I was talking about top first, bottom first? Let me just show you the bottom first, just so that you have it. Obviously, it's all preference, and no one way is right, no one way is wrong. The only way that's wrong is if you're going to damage your client's hair. So again, 1 inch away from here, I want to leave a little bit of wiggle room between my tapes. You never want them side by side, otherwise they're going to push together as they grow out. So you want to make sure you have a wiggle room here, about a finger space, if less than that, and then 1 inch away from here. So now my next section, I'm going to drop down, pick up my hair, making sure that I don't have any little crosshairs in there. If I do have hairs that are wider than my section, I'll just pick them out. Make sure that everything is nice and even. And then let's take my tape. So this right here is your bottom first method. Again, no right or wrong, it's all preference. I'm going to put my tape here, and then with the back of my comb. And then now I'm going to take my second tape, take off the adhesive, the paper back, and then now line it up. One here, and then just press that into place. This way will give you more control. If you are working with someone with really fine hair, this way is going to give you more control in terms of how much you're putting in there, and also in terms of making sure that you don't have any crosshairs, etc., etc. So again, all preference, but you see they both look the same. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my second row. My second row is going to be 1 inch above this row. So that's going to take you now about halfway across the ear. I like to use the ears as a guide because then it makes it really clear for you. So you can see with my finger, I'm just measuring out that 1 inch, and I'm going in with my comb and just taking a straight section all the way across. Whenever I'm working with tapes, I'm always working with straight sections, trying to avoid any heavy slants or angles, because if you're using angles and slants, you're going to create tension. So now you can see I just am finding out where that gap is between those two tapes, because on this row I'm going to use 3 tapes and I'm working in that Bricklay pattern. So my first tape is going to go directly in the middle and above where those 2 tapes were below it, and then that way I'm filling in any gaps. This is how you create full coverage with your taping install, because you're making sure that you don't have any gaps within that install. It also makes it really easy for you as you work, because as you go row by row, you know exactly where you're going to place those tapes, because you know where you need to fill. So you can see that I just flipped up, put my tape sandwich underneath, and then I'm just pressing down to secure. And an optional step that I like is just to take a press plier and go in and press that taping extension. Not necessary, but I like it. I feel like it just gives it extra security. So now you can see I am measuring out my second tape on this row, making sure that I'm keeping about 1 inch away from that hairline, and then again keeping a little gap in between my tapes. Again, gaps don't matter, it's not a big deal, because we always know that we're going to fill it when we go in with our tape above that. So you can see I'm just pressing that down into place, flipping up, make sure that I'm cleaning up that section underneath. You don't want any crosshairs in there, and then I'm taking my next tape and putting it directly underneath. You can see I'm really making sure that everything lines up, all of those corners, I don't have anything peeping out, because the more perfect it looks, the more perfect and durability you're going to get within that install. If you have any pieces that are mismatched and they're not sitting perfectly, then chances are they're not going to last as long in the hair. So again, following those same steps, that Bricklay pattern, and I'm going in with my third tape on this row. I like to use my index finger to control. So if you're not using a clip to clip that tape out of the way, you can use your index finger to control the tape and also control the crosshairs. Okay, so now we are on our third row, sectioning out 1 inch above where that second row was, and this row will then take you now to the top of that ear. So we have a row at the lobe, we have a row halfway across the ear, and then we have a row at the top of the ear. Using the ear as a guide really makes it super simple as well. I always like to find ways to make it simple, simplify it, so that you know exactly where those rows are going to sit. So now you can see I'm following that same Bricklay pattern, finding out where that gap is in that row below, and then filling it. And then now I'm just kind of measuring out where those tapes are going to sit before I place them. So you can see now I'm using 4 tapes on this row. So again, rule of thumb, it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And I am just kind of making sure again that everything is placed about 1 inch away from the hairline, because I want to make sure that this client, you know, can still wear her hair up if she chooses to. That's the beauty of tapes. You have really nice up down movement, and you can wear your hair in a high ponytail and also in a low ponytail. One of my #1 questions with hair extensions in general is always about pricing. This is a question that always comes up when I'm teaching, and I want to be fully transparent with you guys. So when it comes to my taping installs, I charge the cost of the hair, and then per 50-gram pack, I charge $125 for the install. So for example, let's say I am doing 2 packs, 100 grams. The total install fee is going to be $250, and then whatever the hair is. So let's say the hair is $600 plus $250 install. That will give a grand total of $850. With my maintenance, I am charging a little bit more, because with the maintenance, it's a little bit more time consuming, because you are removing the tapings, you're washing the natural hair, and then you're going in and retaping and reinstalling the extensions. Luckily, you already know your placement. You've marked out where those tapes are sitting. You've already cut them and everything you need to do. So at least that's a few less steps missed out. But I do charge a little bit more. So I do charge $150 per pack for the maintenance. So let's say this client comes in for her maintenance on 100 grams, which is 2 packs. Her total maintenance fee is going to be $300. So $125 per pack for the install and $150 per pack for the maintenance. Of course, pricing is at your discretion. This is just a guideline, and it's what I choose to price my taping installs at. I do know people that charge less than that. I also know people that charge more. So again, just kind of look into it, where you're located. Of course, you know your business, you know how much you want to be making an hour. The good thing about tapes is the install is super duper quick. So a lot of the time I can do a full head of tapes in less than an hour. So it's really high profit, because it's low time, high profit. So now you can see I am just flipping up the hair, checking that everything looks good, checking that you can't see any of those tapes when I wear it up. Nothing's poking out, so it looks really good. So now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to go in and begin to do my 4th row. So your 4th row now, a lot of the time you are going to start to bring this round towards the front. So you can see here I am working 1 inch away from that hairline, and I'm going to section 1 inch away from the hairline, which is about 1 inch above the ear. So now you can see I'm just cleaning up that section, and everything, like I said at the start, is straight, working in those straight sections. So I'm going to create that straight section all the way around the head and bringing it round to the front, because now for this row we can start building in the front. This is my preference to how I install the tapes, because I like to think of the head as a whole. If you go in and you start separating the sides from the back, then a lot of the time when you come to the end of the install, you might have accidentally created gaps within that install, and then you'll have a disconnect between the front of the head and the back of the head. So now I'm thinking of it as a whole. So I'm working my way through it. It's more fluid and it creates fluidity and connectivity within that install. So a top tip is if your sections need a little bit of love because they've been clipped up and out the way, have a straightener on hand so that you can straighten and smooth out those sections. My preference for tapes is to always install on straight hair because it really helps you to control crosshairs, flyaways, etc. So now you can see I'm finding where that gap is on the row below and going in with my Bricklay pattern. I'm going to now place my tape in between those two tapes using that Bricklay pattern so you create full coverage. Then I'm just doing this all the way around and you can see I'm starting to bring those tapes round towards the front. This area is really important because sometimes maybe you want to place a tape here, but you might be eating into that hairline. So if that's the case, you can always cut your tape in half. But luckily for me, she's got a nice shaped head and I can go in with those full tapes all the way around. So I wanted to show you here something that I'm doing that you might have noticed is if you want to work quickly, what I like to do is place all of my tapes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'll go in after they're all placed and flip up and go in with my tape underneath. I find that this is a way I can work even quicker by just going in and placing them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what you could see there is I could actually add in a 6 tape, but it would be too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that tape in half so I can utilize that half tape. Most taping brands now, the technology is super advanced. So a lot of them, they're not going to shed if you cut them. These ones, they're not going to shed. I do find that if you are using an injected tape, chances are it might shed, or if it's more delicate, again, it might shed. So before you cut them, always check with the brand that you're good to do it. But I work with a lot of different taping brands and I feel like most of them can be cut and it's not a big deal. So you can see with my half tape, I'm installing it exactly the same way as I would my full tape by flipping it up, putting the half tape underneath, flipping back down and securing into place. So now you can see I'm just going in, flipping up all of those tapes and I'm going to start putting the bottom sandwich underneath. So while I'm doing this, let's talk a little bit about tape maintenance. Maintenance is really important with tapes and I always have this conversation with clients at the consultation because I want them to understand that this method does require maintenance. So with your tapes, you're going to be doing maintenance on them between every 4 to 8 weeks. Maintenance is like what I discussed earlier where you're removing them, you're retaping them and you're reapplying them. My preference is to also wash the natural hair to make sure there's no buildup in there as well. And I always get them to come with clean, dry hair to their maintenance appointments because I'm not going to be washing the tape-ins. My preference is an alcohol-based remover so I don't have to go in and wash the extensions again because they're already clean and the alcohol dries down really quickly. That's why I stay away from oil-based remover because it does leave a residue in the hair. My maintenance appointments are going to be 4 weeks for clients with fine hair, 6 weeks for clients with medium hair, and clients with really thick hair that are slow growers, slow shedders can go all the way up to 8 weeks. The reason that you're able to stretch those maintenance appointments further than a weft, for example, is because you're not moving anything up. You're physically removing it from the hair and reinstalling it. So that's why that maintenance plan is a little bit different. Okay, so that row is now finished and this is the moment where on a client, I will let down all of that natural hair and see how it looks. It will also allow me to see if I need to place an extra row here or if I'm good to go and I can just begin to fill the sides. So on a real person where the color match is good, if I let their hair down, it's gonna look perfect. Okay, so depending on where you part your hair, will depend on how many tapes you're going to have each side. It's going to be an equal amount if they part their hair through the middle. But if they're like me and they have more of a side part, you'll find that maybe you'll have like 3 here and 2 here, or 4 here and 3 here. So always bear in mind where they part their hair. You never want to put an equal amount and then they flip it to the side and it looks really heavy on one side and really light on the other. So now that I can see everything looks good, all I need to do is begin to fill the sides. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm carving out my sides, straight sections. And like what we spoke about with the part, we are figuring out how many we need to put on each side. So with my mannequin, she just has a straight part down through the middle. So she's going to have an equal amount of tapes either side of her head. And on her, I'm going to use about 3 tapes either side. So again, just going in, doing the same thing as I've been doing the whole way around. Nothing changes here. And the placement at the side is almost going to look like a stair. So you're going to step it up one by one by one. And then that way you're able to kind of stagger them and create that full coverage feel. If you have a client with thicker hair, chances are you're going to be using more tapes than 100 grams. Same with if they have a really blunt haircut and they're looking to go longer, you're going to be using closer to 150, maybe even 200 grams. So your rows are going to be a lot more compressed together and you won't be leaving 1-inch gaps between your sections. You'll probably be leaving 1/2-inch gaps, maybe even like 1/4 of an inch of a gap. So your tapes are going to be a lot more compressed together because you need to fit more tapes within that head. Also, on some people, you might have to work higher up into the crown as well to create good coverage so that when you flip down that top layer, you don't have a super heavy disconnect. The more you can do with the extensions, the less work you have to do with the cutting. Cutting, of course, is necessary within an install because that's how you get the cherry on the top, right? You're cutting, you're blending, you're making it look really nice and perfect and finessed. You can add in layers, face frame, but the more perfect your install looks, the more perfect everything else is going to look. So something to bear in mind, because I'm only doing 100 grams, that, you know, placement in between the rows is a little bit different. You're leaving 1-inch gaps rather than on someone with thicker hair. Everything remains the same. It's just a more compressed version. So now you can see I'm coming to the left side of my mannequin and I'm just sectioning off a straight line, and then I'm going to go in and do exactly what I did on the other side. Everything is pretty much a mirror image, so it makes it really nice and easy. And then once I've done my mirror image, then you can let down stuff, and you know, if you have 1 or 2 tapes left over, that's when you can go in and eyeball maybe where you need an extra tape or 2. So I'm going to go in and do what is my final tape, and it's again 1 inch above from that tape below it, and I'm going in, carving out my sections, still keeping them really nice and clean, and then I'm using my last tape to go in and finish off. So I did want to show you a single-sided tape, and because I cut 1 tape in half earlier, it means that I have a single tape left. So I did want to show you a single tape after this and how you might utilize it on a real person, because everyone's hair is different, and regardless of how even you make it, there still might be areas that are thicker and heavier than others. Every head of hair is different, so of course your placement should account for that. So I let down my mannequin and I saw that there was a little bit of a disconnect here in this area, so I still have that single-sided tape. I could go in and cut it, which would help to blend, but I did want to go in and just do 1 single-sided tape just to help create a little bit more coverage in this bang area. So this is a really useful thing to do if you have a client that has that really heavy bang area and you're trying to elongate it and add in a little bit of length. You can go in and use a single-sided tape. A lot of the time this area might be a little bit finer than the rest of the hair as well, so a single-sided tape works really well because you're using half the gram weight as a full tape sandwich. So for your single-sided tape, you're using that top first placement, you're adding your tape in, and then you're just going to flip it up, and instead of adding a tape sandwich underneath. You just use your single-sided tape underneath. So again, flipping it up. I really like the single-sided tapes from Hair Made Easy, so that's what I'm using here. And all I do is just peel it away and then go in and make sure that my corners are aligning. So these have curved corners, just like my tapes, and I'm going to go in, peel it, and line up those curved corners. I'm being really careful that I don't touch it too much either, so I'm just touching it with the end of my nail. Then I'll flip it down, press it into place, and if I want, I can go in with my little pro press as well and just make sure that it's really nice and secure. Okay, that is it. That is my full head tape install. And as a little bonus, of course, I'm going to show you a quick removal. So I'm just using a alcohol-based spray. You can honestly use any. They're all pretty much the same. Spraying down that tape and saturating it. And then I'm going to go in, peel off that top one. With my comb, I gently take off the hairs and then peel off the tape underneath. And then on a real person, you have shed. So you just comb out the shed. And that is how you install tape in hair extensions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, leave me a comment down below. What was your aha moment in this video? If you like educational content like this, then this is the place for you. You can also find me on Instagram, xsamhair and extensionist LA. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.